Hello and welcome to the painting video of the hexagonal temple base from The Joy of Basing. I chose to show you this video so you can get an impression on how the production of these videos usually is. The first thing that we will need to do is to mix ourselves a nice base tone. For this we will mix some P3 Trollblood highlight, some Thornwood green, some black, you can use Tamar black for example, and some Beast hide. We need these colors so we can achieve something that looks very close to the reference that we have showed you before. So yeah, we will apply this base tone in a heavy base consistency onto the whole base. We are using a technique called the wet blending. The wet blending is blending two colors together on the surface of your model. So here we are blending the base tone and some of the Trollblood highlight directly onto the surface. This will really help us to get a great transition without much hassle, so to say. The great thing about these hexagonal profiles is that they have very strong faces and strong surfaces and edges, and therefore it's more easy for us to paint the light situation on according to what we want to do. In this case it's a zenithal highlight that goes onto the base. When we follow the rules of physics, we will be able to achieve a really nice result. So for the first shade we use some Army Painter Strong Tone and we apply it in a wash consistency. So we allow it to flow into the cracks and to build up some contrast really fast and easy. Be quite generous with it. The good thing about the Army Painter's Strong Tone is that it dries out in a very nice, rather satin way. It's really difficult to put on too much. Okay, for the first highlight we will be using a loaded brush technique. We have loaded our brush in the back with the base tone that we mixed before. And in the top we take a little bit of Schmincke Titanium White and then we apply just a little bit pressure on the brush and move it downwards, the surface that we want to blend. So the color from the back of the brush floats into the tip and therefore creates a really nice blending while we go down the surface. This technique has been around for actually a lot of years, but for miniature painting it has been kind of pioneered, I would say, by my good friend Ben Comets, who is really a master of the loaded brush. And we will be painting every single tile using this technique, so they will look more like individual little tiles than one big surface. Here I'm using some of the base tone to quickly glaze over the surface to unify it a little bit. Sideways you can also use the loaded brush technique like that, using the side of the brush and just going down like this. We are focusing on one side of these hexagonal rods, and the more precise you do that, the more realistic the light situation on your base will look. It's also advisable to take a picture of your base with the 2K foundation on. The 2K foundation is when you put first the black color and then the white color. That way you will see the shape of the object that you are painting more naturally, more realistically. And it's good to take a picture to use as a reference to see how the light would really look on that shape of the object that you are painting. The next step is to use some purple glaze to add a little bit of a depth. In this case, I'm using some Leviathan Purple. It's an old wash color by Citadel, which is not available anymore. I think you can achieve the same result using the purple tone from Army Painter. The purple really gives some more contrast and more depth into these gray surfaces, and it really brings some color in there too. So everything that we need at the moment. More contrast and more depth. Notice how I put the glaze down there, and then I clean the brush really quickly, and then I pull the color upwards so it floats more naturally into the top. Here we apply a highlight with the stippling technique, which is not drawing lines of the color, but to apply the color with little reflection dots. We have used some Schminke Titanium White into our base mix to achieve this lighter color. Then we apply also some cracks onto these tiles, because I imagine that these tiles from maybe an old temple have been used quite a lot, so there will be surely some traces of that on the edges of the tiles. And again, we treat every single like an individual tile, so we need to highlight that accordingly. Use your gypsy brush to quickly remove mistakes that you might have done. The gypsy brush is a brush that I have been using for quite a while. It's an old regular brush that could not hold the tip anymore. I cut the tip off, and therefore I can use the brush for many different techniques, but mainly for cleaning up mistakes very, very fast and very locally. Okay, now we will go and glaze a little bit. We will be using some Vallejo Armor Brown to further add some more interesting tone into the shadow area of the tiles. It will also help to build up the saturation and therefore the contrast. The Armor Brown is really, really good because it has a natural satin finish to it. When we apply it on the lower side of the elements, we will get something like that looks like a humid area and therefore looks more deep and more interesting. Here we can also add some of the armor brown directly into the crevices in between the tiles. This will help to make them look more like individual tiles. Now we will very carefully apply some dry brush using some P3 Jack Bone. We will use a soft brittled dry brush for that. Remove the color with a paper tissue and then very carefully apply some the Jack Bone on the very top. This also increases or gives a little more interesting surface texture. Looks a little bit more like stone that way, and it's just ideal for temple tiles, for example. This is the first of 2 steps. Don't be too generous. Really just add some of the texture on the top, but don't overdo it, otherwise you will have to apply another wash or a glaze to bring in some more depth. So less is more, really. Okay, and the second dry brush pass with some Men of Morrow white. You can also use ivory from Vallejo, for example. It's not a pure white, but something like like a cream color white, and this will help to further increase the highlight on top of that. Just keep in mind to be even more careful than with the first step. And at the very end you can add some Schmincke Titanium White and just dry brush on the very edge of these tiles. And also the sides. Yeah, you can see we achieved a nice stone texture. Now we have to clean up the quite messy spots like this one here. So we take the base tone with a little bit Men of Morrow white and we apply that in a glaze, like a medium glaze consistency, to cover up these little dry brushed mistakes or special spots there. Okay, and that's basically it. In this case, we will put on our Skaven army standard bearer. You can see that the angle is really nice for him. That way he looks really imposing and as if he was towering over his army. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you learned something, and I really hope that you join my Patreon for more videos like that. Thank you very much. Have a great day.